Admiral Deho stood on the bridge of the human warship Resilience. His hands gripped the metal railing as he watched the screens show destruction beyond anything he had ever seen. The massive Alterian battle fleet was dying before his eyes. 3 hours ago, those same Alterian ships had been the pride of the Galactic Council. Each vessel was 3 times larger than any human ship. Their weapons could crack planets. Their shields had never been broken in 1,000 years of war. The Alterians called themselves the Sword of the Galaxy. Now they were melting. The enemy was unlike anything in the galaxy's recorded history. The Void Swarm came from the dark spaces between stars. They were not machines or creatures in any way the Council understood. They were something worse. They consumed everything they touched and turned it into more of themselves. Captain Somin watched from her command chair as another Alterian cruiser simply dissolved. The hull metal turned to liquid. The crew inside screamed on the radio channels until the screaming stopped. Then the liquid metal reformed into something new, something hungry. "Admiral?" Somin called across the bridge. "The Alterian flagship is requesting immediate support." Deho looked at the tactical display. The human fleet was small compared to what the Alterians had brought: 12 destroyers and 3 cruisers. The Council had given humanity the smallest role in this battle because they believed humans were too new to space warfare, too primitive to matter. "Move us into support," Deho ordered. "All ships, maximum power to weapons." The human vessels accelerated toward the dying Alterian fleet. Their weapons were simple compared to Alterian technology: kinetic rounds and basic energy beams. But they worked. The first Void Swarm creatures that approached the human ships died quickly. The humans fired with precision that surprised even themselves. Every shot found its target. Every target died, but there were so many of them. On the planet below, the evacuation was going badly. Commander Jae-sung led his unit through the burning streets of New Centauri City. The civilian population was running in panic. Parents carried children. The elderly fell behind and were helped by strangers. "How many more shuttles do we have incoming?" Jae-sung asked his communication officer. 14 more, sir. But the Council evacuation ships are already full. They're heading for the jump points." Jae-sung stopped running. "What do you mean they're already full?" The communication officer looked uncomfortable. "Sir, the Council representative said their ships can only carry their own species safely. They're evacuating their people first." Through the chaos, Jae-sung could see the Council evacuation ships in the distance, massive vessels that could carry millions. They were lifting off half-empty while human families ran through the streets. Below, on the Council command station orbiting the planet, Ambassador Tae-young stood in the emergency session chamber. Representatives from 40 different species argued in languages that made no sense to human ears. The translation devices showed their words in floating text, but the meaning was clear enough. "The human colonies are strategically unimportant," said the Alterian representative. His blue skin was pale with fear. "We must focus on saving the core worlds." "Earth and Mars can be rebuilt," added the representative from the Keith Union. Her multiple eyes blinked rapidly as she spoke. "But if we lose our industrial centers, the war is over." Tae-young stepped forward. "You're talking about 3 billion human lives. Earth is our homeworld. Mars has our largest research facilities. Titan has our fuel production." The Alterian representative looked at Tae-young with something that might have been pity. "Your species has been part of the Council for less than 50 years. You have contributed little to our common defense. Your worlds are acceptable losses for the greater good. Acceptable losses." Tae-young repeated the words slowly. "That's what you call my entire species." "The decision is made," said the Council speaker, a tall being whose species name humans could not pronounce. "All Council resources will be directed to defending the core worlds. The human systems will buy us time to prepare our defenses." Back on the Resilience, Admiral Deho received the withdrawal order. His hands shook as he read it. The Council fleet was leaving. All of them. The human ships were ordered to provide rear-guard action while the Council forces retreated to safety. "Sir?" Captain Somin asked. Your orders? Daeho looked around the bridge. His crew was watching him. These people had families on the planets below. They had friends on Earth and Mars and Titan. The Council was abandoning them all. Signal all human vessels, he said quietly. We're not leaving. Sir, the withdrawal order. The withdrawal order is for Council forces, Daeho said. We were never really part of the Council, were we? We were just the newest members they could afford to lose. On the tactical display, the last Alterian ships were jumping to hyperspace. Soon, only the human vessels remained to face the void swarm alone. Below on the planet's surface, Dr. Hai-Jin worked in her emergency medical facility. The wounded were coming in faster than she could treat them. Burns from void swarm bioweapons, toxin exposure from the creature's presence, injuries from the panic and evacuation. But she noticed something strange. The humans who had been exposed to the void swarm bioweapons were surviving longer than they should. Their immune systems were fighting back in ways her medical training said were impossible. Doctor, called her assistant. The blood work from the combat veterans is ready. Hai-Jin looked at the results. Human brain chemistry was changing under combat stress. Adrenaline levels were beyond anything in the medical literature, but more than that, the stress hormones were different somehow. Changed. She ran the tests again. The results were the same. 3 systems away, Engineer Wu Jin sat in his underground shelter on New Sol. Above him, he could hear the void swarm creatures moving across the surface. The sounds they made were not like any animal he knew. They sounded hungry. His family huddled around him in the darkness. His wife held their daughter close. Their son tried to be brave, but his eyes were wide with fear. Are the Council ships coming back for us? His daughter asked. Wu Jin looked at his emergency radio. No signals, no rescue calls, nothing but static from the empty sky above. I don't think so, he said softly. Then what do we do? Wu Jin felt something growing inside him. It was not fear, it was something colder, something that made his hands steady and his thoughts clear. We fight, he said. His family looked at him in surprise. Wu Jin was an engineer, not a soldier. He built things, he didn't destroy them. But as he held his family in the darkness, listening to the hungry sounds above, Wu Jin understood something the Council had never bothered to learn about humans. When everything was taken from them, humans did not break. They became dangerous. Above them, the void swarm creatures continued their feast. They had consumed countless worlds across the galaxy. Entire species had fallen to their hunger. They expected this world to be like all the others. They had never encountered humans before. They had never learned what happened when humans had nothing left to lose. 3 weeks had passed since the Council abandoned human space. The colonies that once thrived under alien protection now burned under alien indifference. On New Sol, Engineer Wu Jin crawled through the maintenance tunnels beneath the city. His family followed close behind. Above them, the sounds of the void swarm had grown quieter over the past few days. This worried him more than the loud feeding sounds from the first week. When predators went quiet, it usually meant they were getting ready for something bigger. Papa, his daughter whispered. I'm scared. I know, Wu Jin said softly. But look. He pointed to the tunnel walls around them. Other families had carved messages into the metal, names of missing loved ones, promises to survive, coordinates of safe zones. The walls told the story of a species that refused to give up. His wife looked at the messages. So many people are still alive down here. The swarm creatures don't seem to like going underground, Wu Jin explained. They prefer the surface where there's more organic matter to consume. As they moved through the tunnels, they passed other groups of survivors. Engineers like Wu Jin had become informal leaders. They knew the tunnel systems. They understood how to keep the life support running. They had the tools to fight back. Above ground, Captain So-min led a salvage team through the ruins of the spaceport. Her ship, the Resilience, had crash-landed during the final battle 3 weeks ago. Most of her crew had survived, but they were stranded on the surface with no way to call for help. "Captain," called her engineer, a young man named Hyun-woo. "I found something interesting." So-min followed him to where a dead void swarm creature lay against a building wall. The thing was huge, easily the size of a small vehicle. Its biomatter was hardened and black. "This one died different from the others," Hyun-woo explained. "Look at the burns." So-min examined the creature. The burn marks were strange. Instead of the clean cuts from their energy weapons, these burns looked like acid damage. Like something had eaten the creature from the inside. "What could do that?" she asked. "I think it was human blood," Hyun-woo said quietly. "There's a wounded civilian shelter 2 blocks from here. The survivors said they fought off 3 of these things with improvised weapons. Knives, tools, anything sharp." So-min looked at the dead creature again. "You're saying human blood killed this thing?" "I'm saying it looks like human blood is toxic to them." Across the city, Dr. Hyejin worked in her underground medical facility. Her supplies were running low, but her patients were teaching her things no medical school had ever covered. The humans who had fought the void swarm creatures were healing faster than normal. Their immune systems were working at impossible levels. Their brain chemistry showed changes that should have killed them, but instead made them stronger. "Doctor," her assistant called, "you need to see this." Hyejin looked at the test results. Blood samples from combat survivors showed compounds that didn't exist in any medical database. The human body was creating new chemicals in response to the void swarm threat. "This is impossible," she whispered. "The impossible is all we have left," her assistant replied. On the other side of the planet, Commander Jae-sung led the largest group of survivors on New Seoul. Nearly 10,000 people had gathered in the old mining complex. They had food, water, and weapons taken from abandoned military depots. But they also had something else. They had anger. "The council ships are still out there," Jae-sung told the gathered crowd. "We can see them on our long-range scanners. They're sitting safely at the edge of the system, waiting to see if we all die." The crowd made angry sounds. These were people who had lost everything: homes, jobs, friends, family members. Many had watched council evacuation ships leave them behind while taking alien refugees to safety. "They think we're acceptable losses," Jae-sung continued. "They think humans are too primitive to save, too weak to matter." "What do we do about it?" shouted someone from the crowd. Jae-sung smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "We proved them wrong." In the deepest parts of the mining complex, teams of engineers worked on projects that would have horrified the peaceful council species. They were taking mining equipment and turning it into weapons. They were mixing human blood with explosives to create ammunition that could kill void swarm creatures. They were learning to fight dirty. Meanwhile, in the orbital stations around Mars, Admiral Daeho faced a different problem. The human fleet had managed to destroy most of the void swarm creatures in this system, but now they were cut off from Earth and the outer colonies. "Sir," reported his communication officer, a woman named Yoon Seo. "We're getting distress signals from the Titan fuel stations." "How many ships do we have that can make the jump?" Daeho asked. 3 destroyers, sir. The rest need repairs." Daeho looked at the tactical display. 3 ships against an unknown number of void swarm creatures. The council would call it a suicide mission. "Prepare the ships," he ordered. "We're going to Titan." "Sir, the odds." "The odds don't matter," Daeho said. "Those are human lives on Titan. We don't abandon our people." His crew exchanged glances. In 3 weeks, they had seen their species written off as expendable by the galactic community. But they had also seen humans fight back against impossible odds and win. They were starting to understand something important about themselves. On Earth, Ambassador Tae-young sat in the empty council embassy building. Most of the alien diplomats had evacuated when the void swarm threat became known. Only a few remained, and they spent their time sending reports to their home governments about humanity's expected extinction. Tae-young had spent 40 years of his life working for peace between species. He had believed in the Council's vision of cooperation and mutual defense. He had trusted alien promises of protection and friendship. Now he understood that trust was a luxury humans could not afford. His personal communication device showed messages from human colonies across the galaxy. Reports of survival, Stories of resistance, news of small victories against impossible odds. The aliens had expected humanity to die quietly. Instead, humans were learning to fight back in ways that confused and frightened their enemies. Tae Young composed a message to send to every human colony, every ship, every survivor who could receive it. To all human forces, he began. The Galactic Council has abandoned us. They have declared our worlds acceptable losses. They have shown us that we stand alone in this galaxy. He paused, thinking about the words that would define humanity's future. Therefore, we will stand alone. We will fight alone, and we will survive alone. From this day forward, humanity answers to no authority but its own. We owe nothing to those who left us to die. The message went out on all frequencies. Within hours, every human in known space would know that the age of cooperation was over. The age of human independence had begun. And in the darkness between stars, ancient sensors registered something new. The prey species called humans was not behaving like prey anymore. They were starting to behave like predators. The void swarm had consumed 1,000 civilizations. They had learned the patterns of how species died: fear, panic, collapse, consumption. But humans were not following the pattern. Humans were changing the rules. And in changing the rules, they were about to change everything. 2 months after the abandonment, Chief Engineer Dong Ho made a discovery that changed everything. Deep in the asteroid belt mining stations, he had been studying the remains of void swarm creatures that his teams had killed. The mining stations were perfect for this kind of work. They were isolated, well-defended, and full of equipment that could be used for research. Most importantly, they were full of angry humans who had nothing left to lose. "Look at this," Dong Ho called to his research team. He pointed to the tissue, samples under the microscope. The creature's biomatter completely breaks down when exposed to human stress hormones. Dr. Su Jin, who had joined his team after escaping from a research station on Europa, leaned over to examine the samples. "That's not possible. These creatures have consumed entire species. They've adapted to every known biological weapon." "But they've never encountered humans before," Dong Ho replied. "And humans are different." He showed her the test results. When human blood samples were taken during combat, they contained chemical compounds that literally dissolved void swarm biomatter, but only blood taken during extreme stress or anger. "The madder we get, the more toxic we become to them," Sujin whispered. Dong Ho nodded, "And we're getting very mad." Across the solar system, General Insu commanded what remained of the human fleet from his flagship. The ship was called Defiance, and it had been built from the wreckage of 3 council vessels that had been abandoned during the retreat. His communication officer, a young woman named Ji-hai, brought him the daily reports from human colonies across the galaxy. "Sir, the reports keep coming in. Every human settlement that's fought back against the void swarm has seen the same results. Our people are not just surviving, they're winning." Insu looked at the tactical displays. Red marks showed where void swarm forces had attacked human colonies, but many of those red marks were now turning green as human resistance forces drove the creatures away. "How is that possible?" he asked. "These creatures destroyed the entire Alterian battle fleet. The Alterians tried to fight with fear," Ji-hai explained. "Their tactics were defensive. They were trying to survive. Our people are fighting with pure rage. They're trying to kill everything that hurt their families." Insu understood. Fear made you careful. Fear made you think about survival. But rage made you dangerous. Rage made you creative. Rage made you willing to try things that rational beings would never attempt. On New Sol, Wu Jin had become the leader of the largest human resistance cell on the planet. His engineering knowledge had helped them turn the underground tunnel system into a fortress. His anger had taught them how to fight. "The Council evacuation ships are still in orbit," reported one of his scouts. "They've been sitting there for 2 months, just watching." Wu Jin looked at the tactical map they had, drawn on the tunnel wall. His people had marked every void swarm creature on the surface, every safe zone, every supply cache, every weapon depot. They had also marked something else: the locations where human blood had been most effective against the creatures. They're studying us, Wu Jin realized. The council ships aren't here to rescue us. They're here to see how we fight. His wife looked worried. What does that mean? It means they want to learn our secrets so they can use them for themselves, Wu Jin replied. They abandoned us to die, and now they want to steal what we learned from surviving. The anger in the tunnel grew almost physical. These people had lost everything because the council had decided they were expendable. Now the same council wanted to profit from their suffering. What do we do? Asked his daughter. Wu Jin smiled the same cold smile that was becoming common among human survivors. We show them what happens when you make humans angry. On Mars, Captain So-min had rebuilt her crew into something the council would not recognize. They were no longer peacekeepers or explorers. They were hunters. Her ship, the Resilience, had been repaired using parts from destroyed Void Swarm creatures. The biometal from the creatures was stronger than normal ship armor when it was dead. But more importantly, it made human weapons more effective. Captain, called her engineer Hyun-woo, the new weapons are ready for testing. So-min followed him to the firing range they had built in the ship's cargo bay. The target was a piece of living Void Swarm biomatter they had captured. Hyun-woo fired the weapon. Instead of a normal energy beam, it fired a stream of weaponized human blood plasma. The biomatter target began dissolving immediately, making, sounds like screaming. How long until we can outfit the entire ship? So-min asked. 2 days, Captain, but we'll need more blood donations from the crew. So-min looked around at her people. They were all volunteers. They had all lost friends and family to the Void Swarm. They were all eager to give their blood if it meant killing more of the creatures. You'll have all the volunteers you need, she promised. In the outer system, Admiral Dae-ho received a message that changed everything. It came from Ambassador Na-young, who had replaced Tae-young after he had been recalled to Earth. Admiral, the message began, I have been monitoring Council communications. They are planning something. The Council species have been studying our resistance efforts. They want to replicate our biological advantages in their own people. Dae-ho read the message twice. Then he called his senior staff to the bridge. The Council wants to steal our evolutionary advantages, he told them. They plan to modify their own people to be immune to the Void Swarm, using research based on human biology. His officers exchanged angry glances. Commander Yoon Seo spoke first. They left us to die, and now they want to steal what kept us alive. That's exactly what they want, Dae-ho confirmed. But they've made one mistake. They think our resistance is just biology. They don't understand that it's not just our blood that kills the Void Swarm. What do you mean, sir? Dae-ho looked at the stars beyond the bridge windows. Somewhere out there, the Council fleets were hiding in safety, while humans died fighting their ancient enemy. It's not just our biology that's toxic to the Void Swarm, he explained. It's our emotions, our anger, our refusal to accept death. They can copy our blood chemistry, but they can't copy the rage of a species that's been betrayed. He turned to face his crew. Send a message to every human ship, every colony, every survivor group. Tell them what the Council is planning. Tell them it's time to stop fighting just for survival. What should we tell them to fight for? Asked. Yoon Seo Dae-ho's smile was colder than the space between stars. Revenge. The message went out across human space within hours. Every human who received it felt the same cold fire burning in their chest. The Council had not just abandoned them. They had planned to steal from them. But humans had learned something. In their months of fighting alone, they had learned that when everything was taken from them, they became something their enemies had never seen before. They became death itself, and death was coming for everyone who had betrayed them. 6 months after the abandonment, humanity had transformed into something the galaxy had never seen. Captain Min-soo stood on the bridge of the first ship designed entirely around human rage. The vessel was called Retribution, and it looked like nothing the Council had ever built. Instead of smooth alien curves, it had sharp angles that hurt to look at. Instead of peaceful exploration equipment, it carried weapons that fed on human anger. Captain, called his weapons officer, Lieutenant Yoonji. The bio-rage systems are online. Crew emotional levels are optimal for combat. Min-Su looked at his crew. Each person wore a neural headset that monitored their brain chemistry. When they became angry, their anger was channeled directly into the ship's weapon systems. The madder they got, the more deadly their ship became. Target practice is over, Min-Su announced. Today, we hunt real prey. The retribution moved toward the Void Swarm feeding grounds in the outer system. These were areas where the creatures had consumed entire mining colonies. The biomatter from those colonies was still being processed by massive swarm organisms that floated in space like living asteroids. Contact, reported the sensor officer. 3 large swarm bioships distance 50,000 kilometers. Min-Su felt his heart rate increase. The neural monitors showed his rising anger being fed into the ship's systems. Around him, his crew experienced the same surge of rage-powered enhancement. All weapons, prepare to fire, he ordered. The Retribution's weapons were unlike anything in the galaxy. They fired concentrated human emotion made manifest, rage given physical form, anger that could kill. Fire, Min-Su commanded. The space around. The Void Swarm creatures lit up with weapons fire that screamed like the fury of the damned. The bioships tried to adapt, tried to absorb the energy as they had done with Council weapons. Instead, they began to dissolve. Impossible, whispered the sensor officer. The swarm creatures are retreating. For the first time in recorded history, the Void Swarm was running away. On the surface of New Seoul, engineer Sang-ho had turned mining equipment into instruments of war. The massive excavation machines now carved through Void Swarm creatures like they were made of soft earth. But the real breakthrough came when he discovered that human emotions could be stored in crystalline matrices mined from the planet's core. These crystals could hold rage like batteries held energy. Look at this, he showed Dr. Haijin, who had joined his research team. The crystal in his hand glowed with angry red light. 1 hour of human rage, concentrated into solid form. Haijin took the crystal carefully. She could feel the anger radiating from it like heat. What happens when you break it? Let's find out, Sang-ho said. They placed the crystal next to a piece of captured Void Swarm biomatter. Then Sang-ho struck it with a hammer. The crystal shattered, releasing stored human fury in a visible wave. The biomatter didn't just die. It screamed as it dissolved, making sounds of pain that chilled their blood. We can weaponize human emotions, Haijin whispered. We can turn our anger into ammunition. Sang-ho nodded. And we have a lot of anger to work with. Across the colony, thousands of humans worked with focused rage. They built weapons that ran on hate. They created armor that fed on fury. They designed tools that turned human emotion into physical force. They were becoming something new, something dangerous. In orbit around Earth, General Haewon prepared for humanity's first offensive strike. Operation Wildfire was everything the Council said was impossible. Human ships would attack Void Swarm territory using weapons powered by pure emotion. General, reported her aide, Colonel Jinwook. The volunteer crews are ready. Every ship is fully staffed with people who have lost family to the swarm. Haewon looked at the fleet assembled around Earth. 60 ships built from salvaged Council technology and human innovation. Each vessel carried weapons that would have horrified the peaceful Council species. These aren't exploration ships anymore, she told her staff. These are revenge machines. Every person on every ship has a reason to hate our enemies. The fleet moved toward the edge of human space, where Void Swarm forces controlled 3 entire star systems. Intelligence reports said these systems contained swarm breeding worlds where new creatures were grown from the biomatter of consumed civilizations. Sir, called the communication officer, we're receiving a message from the Council observation ships. Put it through, Haewon ordered. The holographic image of a Council representative appeared on the bridge. The alien looked nervous. General, Haewon, we strongly advise against this course of action. The Void Swarm breeding worlds are heavily defended. Your forces will be destroyed. Your concern for human lives is touching, Haewon replied with cold sarcasm. Where was this concern? 6 months ago when you abandoned us. We are prepared to offer assistance if you withdraw from this attack, the alien continued. The Council has developed new weapons based on your biological discoveries. HFY felt her anger spike. The neural monitors on her bridge showed the emotional surge being fed into the ship's weapon systems. Around her, the crew experienced the same rage-powered enhancement. You want to steal our evolution and then save us with our own weapons? She asked. I have a better idea. She cut the communication and turned to her fleet command. All ships prepare for jump. Target, the first Void Swarm breeding world. Sir, warned Colonel Jin Wook. The Council ships are right. The breeding worlds are heavily defended. HFY smiled. It was the cold, predatory smile that had become humanity's new expression. They're defended against rational opponents. Opponents who fight with logic and strategy and self-preservation. What do we fight with? Asked Jin Wook. We fight with hate, HFY replied. And hate doesn't care about odds. The human fleet jumped into hyperspace, leaving the Council observation ships behind. For the first time since the abandonment, humans were taking the war to their enemies instead of merely surviving it. In the darkness between stars, ancient Void Swarm intelligences felt something they had never experienced before. Fear. The prey, species called humans, was not behaving like prey. They were hunting with purpose and rage that exceeded anything in the swarm's racial memory. Their weapons caused pain before death, something the swarm had thought impossible. Worse, the humans seemed to become more dangerous each time they lost something. Most species became weaker when they suffered losses. Humans became stronger. They became angrier. They became more creative in their killing. The swarm began to understand something terrible. In abandoning humanity, the Council had not doomed them to extinction. They had forced them to evolve. And what they had evolved into was everything the swarm had spent millions of years learning to fear. They had evolved into perfect killers who fought with the fury of the betrayed and the creativity of the desperate. They had evolved into humanity's final form, death incarnate, powered by rage and guided by the cold logic of revenge. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you pushed humans too far. The first Void Swarm breeding world had existed for 10,000 years. It was a massive sphere of living tissue floating in space, larger than most planets. Inside its biomatter depths, millions of swarm creatures were grown from the processed remains of consumed civilizations. General HFY watched it through the viewscreen of her flagship as the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Tactical report, she ordered. Commander Young Mi studied her sensors. 17 defensive bioships surrounding the breeding world. Each one is larger than our biggest vessel. Energy readings suggest they have weapons that can crack planets. And our chances of success? HFY asked. By Council standards, 0%. We should all be dead within minutes. HFY smiled her cold smile. Good thing we're not fighting by Council standards. She opened a channel to the entire fleet. All ships, this is General HFY. Today we stop being victims. Today we stop surviving. Today we start killing everything that hurt our families. The response from the fleet was immediate. 60 ships full of humans who had lost everything channeled their rage into weapon systems designed to turn emotion into death. All ships attack formation. Target the largest bioship first. The human fleet moved toward the Void Swarm defenses like angry hornets. Their ships were smaller and supposedly weaker, but they moved with purpose that confused the swarm creatures. Pilot Sungjin led the first squadron of fighters. His ship was barely the size of a council shuttle, but it carried weapons powered by his personal hatred of everything that had killed his brother on Titan. Squadron leaders, remember your training, he called over the communication system. We're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to make them suffer. The fighters attacked in swarms, moving like extensions of human fury. Their weapons didn't just destroy swarm biomatter, they caused it pain. The creatures had never experienced agony before dying. They had never encountered prey that fought with the specific goal of causing maximum suffering. On the flagship, Dr. Young Mi monitored the bio readings from the swarm creatures as they died. What she saw changed everything they thought they knew about their enemy. General, she called urgently, You need to see this. Haywan looked at the readings. What am I looking at? The Void Swarm isn't a collection of individual creatures, young Mai explained. It's a single organism. Every creature, every bioship, every breeding world is connected by quantum biolinks. When we cause pain to one part, the entire organism feels it. Are you saying we're not just killing individual creatures? I'm saying we're torturing a single entity that spans multiple star systems, and it's never felt pain before. As the battle continued, the swarm's behavior became more erratic. The creatures stopped following their usual patterns. They began making sounds that their species had never made before. They began screaming. Fleet Admiral Junho commanded the second wave of the attack from his battleship Vengeance. His ship had been built from the remains of the council vessel that had abandoned his home colony. Every weapon on his ship was powered by the concentrated rage of survivors. The breeding world's defenses are collapsing, reported his tactical officer. The bioships are retreating. Junho watched in amazement as creatures that had never retreated from anything fled from human weapons. All ships pursue and destroy, don't let any of them escape. But as they pressed their attack, something unexpected happened. The massive breeding world itself began to change. Its biomatter surface rippled like water. Then it began to speak. The voice came through their communication systems in perfect human language. Stop, it said. Please stop. The pain. We did not know pain was possible. The entire human fleet hesitated. They had been fighting mindless monsters for months. The idea that their enemy could speak, could feel pain, should have made them more merciful. Instead, it made them angrier. You felt no pain when you consumed our colonies, General Haywan replied. You felt nothing when you ate our children. We did not understand. We are hunger. We are consumption. We have never encountered resistance that causes suffering. Then learn, Haywan said coldly. Learn what it feels like to be the prey. The human fleet renewed their attack with even greater fury. Their weapons had been designed to kill, but now they learned to make their enemy suffer first. Every shot was calculated to cause maximum pain before death. On the surface of the breeding world, Captain Minsu led a landing party into the biomatter depths. Their mission was to plant rage-powered explosives at the core of the creature's nervous system. The environment inside the breeding world was like walking through the digestive system of a giant. The walls were alive and moved around them. The air was thick with the smell of digestion and death. Captain, called Lieutenant Unji, I'm reading processed biomatter from at least 40 different species down here, including human. Minsu felt his anger spike to levels that made his neural monitors scream warnings. Around him, his team experienced the same surge of rage-powered enhancement. Set the charges, he ordered. Make sure they're configured for maximum pain delivery. As they planted the explosives deeper in the creature's body, the breeding world continued to beg for mercy through their communication systems. We will leave human space, it promised. We will consume no more human worlds. Please stop the pain. Too late for bargains, Minsu replied. You should have thought about mercy before you ate our families. When the charges detonated, they didn't just destroy the breeding world's nervous system. They filled it with concentrated human rage and hatred. The creature experienced every emotion of every human who had lost someone to the swarm. The death scream could be heard across 3 star systems. In the aftermath of the battle, the human fleet surveyed the remains of their first major victory. 17 swarm bioships destroyed. 1 breeding world dead. Millions of unborn swarm creatures prevented from ever existing. But the most important victory was psychological. General, reported Commander Young Mi, we're detecting massive biolink disruptions across all known swarm territories. The death of this breeding world has sent shockwaves through their entire collective consciousness. Are you saying we hurt all of them? Asked Haywan. I'm saying we taught them what fear feels like. For the first time in their species' existence, they're afraid of their prey. As the human fleet prepared to jump to their next target, they received a priority message from Council Space. The alien governments wanted to negotiate. They were offering alliance terms, resource sharing, and full council membership with voting rights. General Haiwan read the message and deleted it without responding. The time for negotiation had ended, 6 months ago when they abandoned humanity to die. Now there was only the war, and the war would continue until every swarm creature was dead and every council world understood the price of betrayal. Humanity had learned something important in their months of fighting alone. They had learned that when everything was taken from them, they became capable of taking everything from their enemies. They had learned to fight not just for survival, but for the complete destruction of everything that had hurt them. They had learned that revenge was not just an emotion, it was an art form, and they were becoming masters of that art. 1 year after the abandonment, the Void Swarm was extinct. Admiral Young-Soo stood on the bridge of the human flagship Inevitable as his fleet finished destroying the last swarm breeding facility. Around him, the void of space was filled with the biomatter remains of humanity's ancient enemy. "Sir," reported his communication officer, Commander Bo-young. "That was the final breeding world. Long-range sensors confirm no remaining swarm biosignatures in this galaxy." Young-Soo looked out at the stars. Somewhere among them, the council fleets were still hiding, waiting to see if humanity had survived their abandonment. They were about to get their answer. "Send a message to all human forces," he ordered. "The Void Swarm is dead. Phase 2 begins now." Phase 2 was humanity's response to 6 months of desperate pleas from the Council. Messages begging for protection, offers of alliance, promises of full membership and equal treatment. All ignored. The Council had spent a year studying human resistance methods while safely hidden in their core systems. They had tried to replicate human biological advantages in their own people. They had attempted to create weapons based on human emotional enhancement technology. All failures. They could copy human blood chemistry, but they could not copy human rage. They could build weapons based on human designs, but they could not power them with the fury of a species betrayed. Now they faced a new problem. With the Void Swarm extinct, humanity was the dominant military power in the galaxy. And humanity remembered who had abandoned them to die. On New Sol, now rebuilt as humanity's military capital, President Ji-wan addressed the Galactic Council through a holographic transmission. The alien representatives looked smaller somehow, diminished by their fear of the species they had once dismissed as primitive. "Honored President," began the Altarian representative, his blue skin pale with anxiety. "We congratulate humanity on its victory over the ancient enemy. The Council formally requests a new alliance treaty." Ji-wan looked at the assembled aliens, with the cold expression that had become humanity's signature. "Alliance? You mean the kind of alliance where you abandon us when things get difficult?" "That was a tactical decision based on limited resources," the alien replied weakly. "It was a decision to sacrifice 3 billion human lives because you thought we were expendable," Ji-wan corrected. "But we survived, and we learned something important about ourselves." She gestured to the tactical displays behind her. They showed human fleets positioned throughout the galaxy, each one armed with weapons powered by concentrated human emotion. "We learned that when everything is taken from us, we become very good at taking everything from our enemies." The Council. Representatives exchanged worried glances. The Keth Union representative spoke next. "Surely humanity does not seek revenge against species that were simply trying to survive." "Survive?" Ji-wan's smile was colder than empty space. "Is that what you call it when you steal our research, copy our weapons, and try to replicate our evolutionary advantages for your own benefit?" The aliens fell silent. They had not realized humans knew about their attempts to weaponize human biology. "Here are humanity's terms," Ji-wan continued. "The Council will be dissolved. All member species will submit to human military oversight. Your core worlds will accept human occupation forces to ensure compliance." "That's impossible," protested the Council speaker. "You're demanding total surrender." "I'm demanding exactly what you offered us," Ji-wan replied. "Nothing. The difference is that we're strong enough to take what we want." In the Outer Rim territories, Commander Wanji led human peacekeeping forces through former Council space. These were not the peaceful exploration missions humanity had once conducted. These were occupation forces designed to ensure that no species ever again possessed the power to abandon another to extinction. His troops were volunteers, all survivors of the abandonment. They carried weapons powered by their personal hatred of betrayal. They enforced human law with the efficiency of people who understood what happened when trust was misplaced. "Commander," reported his aide, Lieutenant Dalsu, "the Altarian colony. Ships are requesting permission to establish a settlement in the Proxima sector." Wanji looked at the request. 6 months ago, these same Altarians had voted to abandon human colonies to the Void Swarm. Now they wanted human protection while they expanded their territory. "Request denied," he said. "Altarians will remain in their core systems under human supervision. They lost their expansion privileges when they lost their moral authority." This was the new reality. Species that had once treated humans as junior partners now lived under human oversight. They were not enslaved or mistreated, but they were never again allowed to make decisions that might threaten other species. On Mars, Dr. Bo Young made the discovery that completed humanity's understanding of their own transformation. In her laboratory, she studied the genetic changes that had occurred in humans during their year of fighting alone. "The modifications are permanent," she explained to Admiral Yong-Su during his visit to her facility. "Human brain chemistry has been altered at the DNA level. We can still feel the full range of emotions, but we now have the ability to weaponize our anger in ways that no other species can match." "Are we still human?" Yong-Su asked. "We're more than human," Bo Young replied. "We're what humans become when they're forced to survive alone against impossible odds. We're evolution's answer to betrayal." She showed him the genetic markers that made humans unique in the galaxy. The ability to convert emotional energy into physical force. The biological immunity to fear-based weapons. The neural pathways that turned rage into tactical advantage. "But the most important change isn't biological," she continued. "It's psychological. Humans now instinctively distrust any authority that isn't human. We've evolved a genetic memory of abandonment that will be passed to our children. So future generations will remember what the Council did to us. Future generations will be born knowing that only humans can be trusted to protect human interests," Bo Young confirmed. "We've evolved into a species that can never again be betrayed because we will never again trust anyone enough to betray us." This was humanity's final transformation. They had not just survived abandonment, they had evolved beyond the need for external protection or alliance. They had become a species that trusted only itself and protected only its own interests. The galaxy learned to live with this new reality. Council species found that human oversight was actually more effective than their old system. Humans didn't play favorites or make decisions based on political convenience. They simply ensured that no species was ever again abandoned by those sworn to protect them. But they also ensured that no species was ever again powerful enough to abandon others. The former council members discovered that living under human protection was safer than their old system of mutual defense. Humans didn't negotiate with threats or make compromises with enemies. They simply destroyed anything that threatened the peace. This made the galaxy a much quieter place. Years passed. New species joined the human-led galactic government. They were welcomed with the same protection offered to all members, but they were also warned about the consequences of betrayal. Children grew up in a galaxy where council abandonment was taught as history's greatest cautionary tale. They learned that trust was earned through shared sacrifice, not given through pretty speeches and signed treaties. And in the deepest archives of human space, historians preserved the records of that first year. The messages of abandonment from the Council, the reports of human resistance, the documentation of humanity's transformation from victims to protectors. They preserved these records not as memorials to the dead, but as reminders to the living. The galaxy was safer now. Species were protected. Ancient enemies were extinct. Peace was maintained through strength rather than negotiation, but humanity never forgot the lesson they had learned in their darkest hour. In the darkest times, When everything seemed lost and everyone else had given up, human rage had been the one force that struck back against the impossible and won. And that rage, tempered by justice and guided by hard-won wisdom, had become the foundation of a new galactic order where no one would ever again be left to die alone. The stars themselves remembered what happened when humans were betrayed, and they made sure it never happened again.